The mental health burden for me of daily life is higher than the physical health burden of an illness. I suppose in many ways I'm a bit late to the party of getting COVID. My husband got it first, and I had decided, we'd already made a family plan that we've got these opportunities of having the family divide and conquer, so we don't all have to get it, and we don't all have to modify our lifestyle just because one person's got it. So we have a granny flat. One of my daughters has got a flat in the city now, which is handy, or had her boyfriend's house before that, and then there's our house. So we've got 3 locations, and 3 at the time we were making the plan, there was 3 parts of the family, and my place was in the main home with my husband. So when my husband got COVID, was confirmed with COVID last week, the plan was for me to stop there, and so it seemed inevitable that I would also get it, and I have. Thankfully, not a bad case, so I'm really happy that way. So the COVID situation in general hasn't bothered me too much. I was one of the fortunate people who enjoyed the slowdown in the social world, and even thrived in that, and didn't find it stressful at all, quite enjoyed it. Where I started to find it a little bit more stressful was as things eased off. So as we got back to living with COVID or being told to go out, I felt that there was a bit of pressure to just go from this ultra cautious to, hey, let's live with COVID like it never happened, you've got to just get over it. So when my husband finally did start to look sick, and then we tested him and he came back positive, it didn't feel like a surprise. It felt like an inevitability, and okay, let's just get on with this, we can do this. So that's what happened there. And by the way, he's also fine. He has suffered a rougher dose than I've had so far. This is my day 4, so I suppose it could still get worse, but so far it's been fine. But just to prove a point, between my husband getting sick with COVID on, say, Saturday evening into Sunday, he tested positive on Sunday, and me testing positive eventually Thursday morning, that was the most stressful period for me in terms of mentally with the COVID situation, because I kind of felt like I was on death row, that I was going to get COVID because of the nature of my relationship with my husband, that not only had we made this plan that we would stay together, not necessarily in each other's faces, but we wouldn't limit our movement around the main home, that I was going to come down with this thing. I didn't know when, I didn't know how hard it would hit me, and how I would cope with that. So actually, on the Wednesday morning when I woke up and I definitely felt the sore throat and like, this could be something, then I started to feel a little bit more relieved almost that it was happening. So I guess the first take home there is my autism with COVID, getting COVID in this last stage. I realise there's a lot of anxiety and worry and illness for me that comes with not knowing and not being able to plan and understand, or not being able to preempt exactly how something's going to play out, and actually to this date that has been the worst thing for me. So I felt more vulnerable and more sick, iller when I didn't have COVID to now when I do. And I appreciate that's this specific set of circumstances to me now, but that's how it's played out for me. Could have been different, but that's how it's played out for me. I think there's something about being actually physically ill in the body that is easier for me to deal with than being mentally drained and then becoming mentally ill. And that plays out in society as well. For example, people are constantly asking how you are, like how are you, how's COVID, how are you feeling, I hope you get better soon, because it's a known thing. So you've got COVID, oh I hope it's all right, it goes on this trajectory, then you'll be back to normal. And if I say to them, well, my normal feels worse than this, it's kind of like, where do we go from there? the mental health burden of being autistic is significant for me, and I know for others, and that is something that I have to navigate every day of my life. That is my normal, and sometimes it's worse and sometimes it's a bit easier. The physical illness is the only time, other than these big pandemic times, etc., when the outside world pauses you, allows you some extra time and space and adjustments. So when you're physically ill, especially when other people have empathy for that, they've been through it, they know people who've been through it, they know it's a bad thing, they're willing and able to make accommodations for you. When the burden is your mental health, it's not accommodated, it's a problem. It's a problem for people because I think they can't see it, they don't know how long it's going to last, they don't know what you're going to do, there's an unpredictability to it, and that makes it difficult. Being autistic doesn't mean you're mentally ill. Being autistic is a neurotype, but being autistic produces a sensory reality around you that can sometimes be overwhelming, especially when you're having to exist within realms that stretch your capacity. So, if I could create my own perfect autistic life, I wouldn't necessarily have the day-to-day anxieties that I have, but I can't, so I do. So I'm autistic, and that sometimes causes me to have mental health issues. For me, being sick, data is good. If I have to pay attention to my body to keep my body safe, then I need help with that, because I don't naturally read my body as well as maybe some people do. It's not like the top of my priorities. The top of my priorities in terms of, checking my body is usually my mind. And to be honest, right now, I don't feel particularly ill, so I'd be inclined, if I didn't know I had COVID, I'd be inclined to just go running around in my usual life and then maybe feel a bit tired or, croaky at the end of it. But because I know I have COVID, I'm intellectually going, right, check myself. My ability to physically check my body for signs of illness and fatigue is not that good. That's where data comes in, and data provided by the Garmin has been quite useful. I have been using that to look for trends and signs that I'm under stress in a physical sense. I know better when I'm under mental stress because I'm used to that and I can understand that. But physical stress on my heart, say like, the fact that this tells me my average beats per minute, my resting pulse and my whatever, I can look at that and look back to times when I've had similar days, just sitting around or whatever, and see that my resting heart rate has gone up a bit because of COVID. That it's not so much that it reassures me, it's not about that. The reassurance is not needed at this point. I'm not mentally stressed about COVID. What it's good for is bringing me or giving me some data to check my body with. The fact that it's shown me for a couple of days that my resting heart rate has gone up, albeit probably only 10-15%, that makes sense to me because my body's fighting a virus, and it also makes sense physically that I should then be a little bit more tired, which I have been a bit more today because I'm doing that extra work without doing extra work. So this has really helped me as an autistic person. I have some empowerment right here. It's sort of checking on me. I'm not relying on the data exclusively. What I'm doing is I am using this to just give me some intellectual data that I can then use to check my physical body and marry up and make that link, because my somatosensory system and my intellectual system don't often talk to each other, or when they do, they don't necessarily interpret it in the right language or the best way. So that's my ramble on about COVID. My husband's getting better. He's out of quarantine tomorrow, so that'll be his 7 days done. We'll test him again just to see if the virus has gone away, but essentially he's definitely on the mend. My back into the world party will be Wednesday, I think. Not that it will be a party, but it'll happen. hopefully, and that's that. So hopefully if you've had COVID, you haven't got any complications from it, that it wasn't too bad for you. If you did and you have, then you're sorry to hear that. It hasn't been an easy ride for everyone, and if you're yet to get it, hang on in there. I'm sure your turn will come, because of the way the world is, and the way that we are really being forced to get it. Let's face it, you know, living with COVID basically means everyone's going to get it. It's just a question of when, how, and how bad. So, you know, do whatever you need to do to deal with that reality. And yeah, thank you for listening.